Hey everybody, Shannon Scott, your storyist on a beautiful Sunday here in late September, coming to you from alongside of Battery Creek in Beaufort County, South Carolina, just outside of Beaufort and off of Boundary Street, inside of a cemetery called 16 Gates. And what a lovely setting against the water, that idea of the elemental of water, kind of the eternal flow, the cyclical, the continuum, just that thing we all embody, right? Water and memory and life, really. But this is a cemetery where back in the 1770s you had a church, and I don't know if they had a graveyard or not, but it was burned down by the British, rebuilt, and then the Union Army burned it, I would guess, during the Great Skedaddle, as they call that evacuation of Beaufort in the wartime. And then someone in the black community, and I apologize, I don't know every layer of the history here yet, but they bought the land, made it into the cemetery, and I think one of the other nicknames for the cemetery is something like Bob's Burying Ground or something. It's sort of interesting. Bob's Old Burying Ground. I found it kind of in conjunction with 16 Gates, which I presume meant something about the ironwork, but those gates were removed in recent years to some chagrin. But out here you find a lot of kind of epic names, from Baldwin to Washington, to Bradley, to Polite, to Rivers, to Green, to Robinson. And Robinson and Green invokes really Dr. Buzzard, the Civil War era witch doctor that is also buried out here in Beaufort County, not here, but I presume in the small world of those names, those are some of his extended family. But, you know, this is really a Christian burying ground by and large, so I don't know if they're involved with, sorcery. But I love this headstone for Arthur Rivers. Speaking of alchemy, we have the hand-drawn Masonic symbol with the G in the middle there, almost illegible, and the birth date of 1916, death date of 1971, and the bluish-green lichens growing all over it give it a quality that reminds me of a Geechee cemetery down there in Harris Neck, Georgia. Here's another one that's kind of hand inscribed. Hard to see here in the shade though, but some writing, something like God is love, or hard to say down there. Just some dates, 1890, born 1890. I can't read the death date. It's another Rivers, maybe a father or something, 1880. Anyway, so yeah, some of those headstones down there in Harris Neck, I don't know if it's the case anymore, but they were painted the Haint blue, which is that kind of water association, and about that being a barrier to evil, and the whole thing. And speaking of that, there's an entablature over here where someone, probably using their finger to in that personal way, put water waves, or like a ripple, a tide pattern in the headstone. It could be something else, but it's just kind of how it strikes me right away. Man, you might want to rename this the Motorcycle Muffler Cemetery. Goodness gracious. It's like, I guess it's what you get when you got a military base nearby, right? A lot of crotch rockets. One of my first kind of leads into the Gullah Geechee Beaufort County scene, other than just kind of wandering over here and figuring stuff out on my own, was through a guy that they call the Rev, Joseph P. Bryant III. I've heard he's still around, but his health wasn't exactly great when we first started hanging out, so I hope he's out there and good. But anyway, I would do kind of like special tours for my friends and myself, and nothing really kind of commercial, I guess. And we had a lot of interesting adventures. But the Rev, he addressed one of my, I guess, observations was that sometimes the cemeteries of this culture, or, you know, maybe they're more rural, whatever you want to call it, but they're not always like the most kempt or kept up. And you can clearly tell that while someone mows out here with a little weed eating, that, you know, litter and they're dump sites here, obviously, and that's a shame, right? But a part of the way he responded to that, it wasn't a criticism, you know, just a question. He said that in his culture, there are some baked in, obviously, you know, age-old traditions around the dead, and, you know, Bible or no Bible, Christianity or no Christianity, that those superstitions live in the people, you know, like almost genetically at this point. And he said that, you know, while it's one thing to be there at the funeral and commemorate and, you know, give your loved one up to Christ or Jesus and send them on home type of thing, that while you might come back, you know, a few times in your life, you know, the dead are the dead, and, you know, all the good work is really being done out in the world. But the superstitious side of that, and this is one that he related to me, but I've also since read in other related type, you know, histories, that if someone was out here and they heard a twig snap, see if I can make that happen now, that something dark had attached itself to you and was about to go with you home and make trouble in your life. And, you know, this is why a lot of people in the culture, historically anyway, would go to their root doctors to, you know, for protection and to lift curses, or, you know, someone having put root on them, as they might offer. So yeah, he said, you know, they'll pay someone every now and again to come in and weed eat and mow, but really no one's trying to hang out here. And by the way, the Puritan age graveyards of America and probably other places, they had similar attitudes, although you went to church there every week. So I love this little plot for a gentleman who was, you know, either had a cool scooter, maybe died on one, not impossible, but maybe just liked motorcycles too, but it looks like he might have had a scooter. Certainly indicates traveler. No, but anyway, where was my thought process there? You know, in the Puritan age graveyards, people, you know, they put you in the ground, they did the memorial, but they also kind of saw, you know, death is death, and a really dark kind of thing. So they just skedaddled out of the churchyard as fast as they could get home on a Sunday. And you might have even been seen as weird in your culture or society if, you know, you were hanging about the grave a little too much, you know, right? People start talking. But no, I just think it's interesting. There are those relationships, although culturally they may be founded in different things and live differently in terms of their meanings. They're not terribly far apart either, are they? Yeah, that's that small human community we live in. You know, one of the things that jumped out at me, and I'd forgotten it was out here, is a plot that has been gated with Depression era furnace parts. And I suspect that these ran, you know, this is a single slat, and that's a part of the piping that was cut. Or maybe it was just a small water heater type thing, and there was only one level like this. But I love how they took these out and just surrounded the entire plot with them. It's hard to see because it's all pretty buried. But that invokes a neat thing, doesn't it? That it's radiating warmth and love, and it's just keeping your loved ones warm, because it can get cold here by the water. So that's a lovely gesture expression. And, you know, I love those little unexpected things like that. Uh, let's see. So, one of the things that captured my attention out here today was a new headstone. It's a couple years old, and it was placed here by the community of Beaufort and anyone who donated to a GoFundMe page that was created for a guy that was simply nicknamed Tootie. Now, Tootie seems like, through the years, the 3 decades or so that I've been around here, I'd seen him on television, even in Savannah, because he was such a kind of a Mayberry type character. Everyone kind of knew and loved him. No one was really sure, maybe, why he was a little strange and, so colorful, but he definitely vibed differently. And you kind of wonder, was this a guy with, on the spectrum, or did he just have a different type of DNA and was embracing that spirit, in spite of the civilization around him? I think a lot of people relate to that. They feel kind of trapped by the paradigm. But here was a guy, Tootie, Wilson Lane. I don't know if they said Bork or Burke, so my apologies in advance. But Tootie, we'll go with Tootie. He's there with a kind of a master of ceremonies parade baton. He's holding onto his famous whistle. And some attributed the nickname Tootie to that. He would almost speak with the whistle, and he sometimes played crossing guard for kids down there on Green Street, crossing after school, or just maybe in general played, crossing guard for out of politeness. But he also carried a slingshot in his back pocket, which I think really points to that big kid that he just persisted to live like, and was obviously under some other family care. He had simple sweeping jobs, and would sweep off sidewalks and storefronts, but was also kind of an enigma. I don't know if every detail of his life has been mapped out, but he was very beloved and just started taking up the baton and became sort of the self-appointed parade master in his lifetime, and everybody just kind of let him, whether they liked it or not. That's how somebody phrased it, whether they liked it or not. And Pat Conroy, the novelist, Lords of Discipline, Great Santini, Prince of Tides, Beaches, Conrack, The Water is Wide, so many. He's buried in the Gullah cemetery not far from us here. And I knew him briefly back in the 90s. But nonetheless, in his coveted novel, and I think excellent movie with Nick Nolte, The Prince of Tides, filmed here in Beaufort. And Beaufort is the setting, although given a fictitious name of another town, but South Carolina, on the coast all the same. But in that novel, The Prince of Tides, I can say that, he let Tootie be an inspiration for a character that he called Mr. Fruits. And I don't remember, to be honest, because I've not read that book since high school, maybe college, but I don't remember if it was because he was fruity or he was a fruit seller, whatever it was. But Tootie became Mr. Fruits in The Prince of Tides, and Pat Conroy had something kind of interesting to say about it. I don't recall I don't think he commented this in the novel, but outside there in life. He said that I'm paraphrasing, that you can pretty much judge the goodness of a community, its corruptions or its degree of corruptions by the measure of how they accommodate a person like Tootie. I thought, God, that guy was such a wizard with words. Let me become that. But I thought it was wonderful. It really shows that the community does have, on just a person-to-person level, that type of love for someone. And it looks like if that's the measure, then wow, Beaufort's a good place, and the people are good people. Because obviously they love Tootie even beyond the grave, right? They got him a beautiful headstone with a classic snapshot of himself just kind of doing that jazzy dance he did in the parade route and around in life. Every town needs that, don't they? Well, guys, it's starting to sprinkle a little bit, speaking of water, and we'll part company for now, but thanks for letting me tour you around 16 Gate Cemetery here in Beaufort, South Carolina, and hope you're having a nice weekend, and just basically am grateful you took a pause to spend some time with me, and hope you learned yourself something. Always feels good to share. Well, I will story you guys soon. Take care of yourselves, and don't forget to share my channel with others so that we can keep on doing this thing, and hope you believe me to be good in that. Take care, guys.